What did your school waste money on that nobody liked? Story 1. I don't remember the details, but there was a competition between high schools where students could go on a website every day for a period of time and take a quiz about driving, road signs, right-of-way, etc., in order to boost their school's score. I'm not sure if it was based on participation or the number of correct answers, but the students went crazy about the idea of winning money for our school. Some students were making multiple accounts and signing up with different emails, while others were teaching their younger siblings about driving to get the junior high students in on it too. Announcements were made every morning about how close we were to our goal, where we were in the ranking, what the next goal was, and what we could do with the money once we received it. The roof in the biology room leaked every time it rained, so a lot of students were advocating for that. The dance room had wood flooring in big squares, but over time the seats had cracked and the edges started sticking up. We would have to put tape over it to keep dancers from hurting themselves, and a couple of dancers did get hurt because of the cracks in the floor, so a lot of us were advocating for that to be fixed first. After all our hard work, they announced the winner of the competition, and it turns out we won. We were so excited. The students were going crazy talking about what we should spend the money on. Parents were involved. It was a big deal. A couple of days after that, they announced they would be spending the money at another campus several cities over that hadn't even been built yet. They detailed all the cool equipment this new campus would have in the big gym they would be building there with the money we earned and worked so hard for. Our campus had to walk down the street to use the gymnasium of a church building because we didn't even have our own gym, soccer field, or anything else. They continued to announce the renovations and all the cool stuff the students in the other city would be getting for weeks after. You can imagine the students were pissed, and so were the parents. We tried to run several petitions to use at least some of the money at the main campus, but all to no avail. The worst part of all of this is that the next year, the campus was finished. We started doing playoffs in sports against the campus, so we got to see up close and personal all of the things our hard work had paid for that we didn't even get to use. Those kids studied road signs and the right-of-way to win funds for their school. Too bad the school's renovation funds took a detour to another city. Story 2. My first high school wasted money on a war. Maybe I should explain. The school where I went my freshman and sophomore years had 2 parking lots, one of which was reserved for faculty and guests. The second one, the place where students could park their cars, was near the back of the campus. Although it was larger and arguably more convenient for many reasons, it became the site of a long-running battle. See, on one fateful Monday morning, people arrived to discover that dozens of speed bumps had been attached to the asphalt. That probably would have been fine, except for the fact that the mounds in question were much taller than the standard sort, to the point where even the slowest moving vehicle would end up scraping against them. Complaints from both students and parents were quickly filed with the administration, but the official response was that nothing would be done. Something was done anyway, though. Nobody ever found who had been responsible, but a few days later, word started to spread that the speed bumps had been removed. As it turns out, someone, or more likely a group of someones, had ventured out in the middle of the night, hacked the offending bumps from the parking lot, and returned the space to its original state. Needless to say, this didn't sit well with the people in charge of the school, and they wasted no time in taking action. By which I mean, they paid to have new obstacles, which were still too tall, installed. Another removal happened after that. Another reconstruction followed, along with the hiring of a dedicated security guard. To the best of my knowledge, that was when the war finally ended. The ceasefire may have come about because the latest speed bumps were finally short enough to actually get over, but my guess is that the vigilante vandals just gave up. Either way, I'm fairly sure I wound up experiencing the one moment in history that saw someone hired for the express purpose of protecting speed bumps.
What was the worst time you walked in?
Rufus Rugs, open up! Sorry for barging in like that, but I just had to share the sponsor of today's video. Me and the boys from Rufus Rugs. Now you might be saying to yourself,
excuse me, what the actual are you doing in my house?
But I can assure you're gonna like this. We've been hard at work creating the best quality and premium hand-tufted rugs money can buy. Now imagine this. You, chilling on your bed, watching a Rufus Stories video, and staring at a rug that's not just a rug. Nope, it's a masterpiece. It's the kind of rug that makes your friends wish they were you. But they're not. And the best part is that these aren't your average cheap quality rugs. Nope, each one is handcrafted by me and the boys. No shortcuts, no robot assembly lines, and no dropshipping BS. Just pure rug grind. Whether you love anime, sports, cars, or anything else you can think of, we can turn it into a rug. So click the first link in the description and have your custom idea come to life.
Story 3. Lockers that didn't even work. Back in 2017, we had some school funds that were supposed to go into some improvements to the school facilities. Some background information. In Singapore, it's part of secondary school culture to decorate our classrooms, inside and out, during certain parts of the year. Examples, Chinese New Year, some school events. That's part of team building. Every class had something unique about them that they could show off to the rest. On with the story. Our classrooms all have windows facing the corridor outside. Decorations were usually placed right under the window so people walking by could see them. The new lockers were installed right outside our classrooms, covering the walls and blocking the decorations. The locks were made out of some cheap metal that oxidized within 1 week or so of use, and the lockers were made of cheap plastic. Nobody even used them because you could just grab the whole lock, twist it, pull it, and then manually open them up, because even the glue attaching them to the doors was weak. Eventually, we used some of the lockers for free without even paying for them, because there's no way those deserved our money. We just picked one locker and then randomly chucked things inside that no one would steal, like our schoolwork. It was hilarious. Story 4. The large schoolyard at my school had a set of planters in the center. They were basically 4 triangles made of brick that pointed inward at each other and created an X-shaped walkway between them. The outside sides each had a bench attached. People would sit and chat with each other on the benches, teachers and students alike. There was very little litter or vandalism. The plants were kind of pretty, insofar as any secondary schooler would care to notice. One year, a duck made her nest in one of the planters, and apart from a few "oh hey, a duck nest" comments, it was left alone. Then, for some reason, the school decided to rip the planters out. It took them 2/3 of the school year to do it, and they blocked off the X walkways, so everyone had to crush by on the outside lanes between classes. Everyone was super curious as to what the planters would be replaced by. It turns out, nothing. They simply bricked over the holes left by the planters and left a huge empty space. We didn't even get new benches, so no one had anywhere to sit during lunch break. People started to miss the plants since the lack of color left the whole area kind of bland. We also kept to the old X walkway since stepping over the former planters felt weird. That schoolyard had a breezy walkway that turned into a no-go zone faster than a cafeteria line at lunch. Meanwhile, the students went from basking under the sun to wondering if the school had undergone a concrete makeover overnight. Story 5. This isn't common knowledge, so I was really the only one aware of it. But I worked for Cisco Foods as a baker at the university, and the upper echelons of the administration had hired their own personal pastry chef to make these extravagant desserts for their meetings. The pastry chef was legit. She made absolutely amazing desserts for a wide variety every day, loaded them onto a cart, and with her baker's outfit and hat on, wheeled it up to her daily administration meetings. Her salary was paid for by the students of the school, so that the administrators could dine on first-class pastries and desserts made from scratch each day. She was really good at her job and actually helped me improve the bakery, but I was so mad that her job even existed simply to provide pastries to people who just sat around and decided how the school's money was spent. I obviously didn't make a stink about it to anyone, because she was my friend and I wouldn't ever dream of putting her employment at risk, but I couldn't help feeling like her entire career was to make fat cats fatter, and it just boiled my blood. Story 6. I have a fun story about my school. Many schools have free or reduced cost lunches. My high school was the same, but it also had a lunch account. If your parents sent in money, they added it to your account. They did not accept the money at their perfectly functioning registers, and the money had to be in a box on Monday at a specific time, or it wouldn't be added until next week. The lunches, of course, were trash, and unfulfilling to say the least. A high school student eats more than 4 chicken nuggets, a scoop of potato, and a sugar-free cookie. It wasn't enough to feed a 5-year-old, let alone a 17-year-old. And now we add in the reduced cost lunches, 45 cents once per day. You were not allowed to go back, though, if you had reduced cost lunches, Breakfast was served for about 15 minutes, and the buses didn't get you there in time to get it. So there are literally students who have had no breakfast, then get served next to nothing, and are not allowed to go back through. And if you didn't have 45 cents because your check wasn't in the box by the time class started on Monday, or because your parents are that broke, you didn't eat. They did, however, allow you to order from the expensive a la carte concession register on credit up to $5 a day. Everything cost $2 to $3 maximum except milk, which was like $1.50. So guess what the poor kids had to do? They had to order a la carte to not starve all day, which cost them more than if the school had let them get a second lunch. So the school made a profit on poor kids with their reduced cost program, while serving garbage that cost them next to nothing. According to the school, the reduced cost was an at-cost value, with labor included. Story 7. When I was in elementary school, 4th or 5th grade, our principal was also the principal of another school in the same part of town. So what happened was that over there, each school is assigned a specific amount of money, depending on the number of students. He took the money that was assigned to the school I was in and spent it on another school he was also the principal of. It was literal theft and embezzlement. The money he took was specifically to be used for new textbooks and other teaching materials, as well as new desks and such. The only reason he was even able to do it was because he was the principal of 2 schools, and he really hated the school I enrolled in. Most of the kids there came from poor or immigrant backgrounds, while the school he funneled the money to was mostly Caucasian upper-middle-class kids, which is probably why the money wasn't returned to my school after he took and spent it. While if there had been any real justice done, the lost money would have been taken from the other school's budget. But when it was found out, he not only lost his job, but ended up in prison for it. Oh well, that was decades ago. But it still managed to ruin a lot of children's education. It seems that the principal was an overachiever, running 2 schools with a side of embezzlement. If you don't want to end up in prison like him, you better hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Story 8. My old high school had more than enough room for its student population, but for some reason they decided to build a new school and say they would convert the old one into an old folks' home. Well, the school ended up having mold or something, so it couldn't be used, and it is just still an empty building that people break into all the time to explore. The new school ended up being a lot smaller. We needed 2 portables in the first semester. Hallways were a lot more cramped. Lockers were about half the size and not very usable. We lost a game room, a background, a large open field with a small forest, and instead got a landfill that smelled bad and polluted water, and a fenced-off field. There were also a bunch of other complaints that I can't think of right now. Story 9. My senior year, my school ran a community logo contest. Students could design a logo for the community, and the winning logo was supposed to get printed onto shirts, bags, hats, etc. for people to buy. I won the contest. I got my picture in the paper and a bag full of little goodies donated by local stores. I was excited to see people actually selling or wearing my logo, but it never happened. It never got printed. I didn't even get my own shirt with it. From what I heard, the school decided not to waste money printing stuff because they weren't sure if it would actually sell. I was really looking forward to seeing my logo around the community because I was pretty much a nobody in school. I always got bullied and had very few friends, so finding out that I got excited for nothing really sucked. This dude sure had rotten luck. Instead of achieving his design dreams, they turned into faded memories. Better luck next time. Story 10. Some of my classmates won a bunch of money for our school. Our school was one of the lowest funded schools in the district. The district took the money and spent it on another school. Well, the students who won the award did the whole thing where they took a picture with a big check. After that, there was no communication. The money was just gone. Eventually, we found out that it had gone to another school. When my classmates found out, they were visibly upset, but it was not something unexpected. The district didn't care about us, even though our school had the highest test scores. In fact, that school is being shut down in the next few years. I just went to the last reunion back in December. It sucks. Story 11. They brought flags of all the states and put them around this caged-in area full of gravel. They caged the gravel to stop students from walking across it. They also brought flags in the school colors to line the fence around campus. The only thing is, they went in an area that can get very windy with 0 windshields, so those flags took a beating. By mid-year, they were an ugly frayed mess. Honorable mention goes to the bridge they built across the courtyard we weren't allowed to walk across, that they eventually paved over. Shout out to the flagpole a kid made for Eagle Scouts that was taken down the same year by the administration. And a big shout out to the administration during my little sister's years there, where they sealed off the inner hallway doors and added extra doors outside to stop students from traveling between classes indoors. I don't know how that solved anything except adding extra minutes to your travel time between classes. We had our lockers banned too. We had them for 1 year, and then they got mad because people just put their own locks on whatever locker they wanted without paying for it. So they banned all locker use, but left the lockers there to clog up the hallways. Story 12. I went to a Catholic high school. Very few of the students were actually Catholic, and went there because the local public school district was terrible. We won some contest or grant, and the school said they would allow the students to pick what the money was spent on. The options were new flooring for the gym, renovating the courtyard next to the chapel into a prayer garden, or renovating the courtyard next to the cafeteria into an outdoor eating space. Most people voted for new gym floors, and some people voted for the outdoor eating space. I do not know of anyone who voted for the prayer garden. Guess what won? The prayer garden. People, even teachers, were furious as the voting was clearly rigged to give us the appearance of a choice. If they really wanted a prayer garden, they should have just done the work without putting it to a vote. The funny thing about the prayer garden is that they actually made it nice and put in benches, plants, and whatnot. It was always locked and never used. Administration would often say during tours, "Oh, look at our lovely prayer garden for the students. They voted for it." No, we didn't. Now that's a holy plot twist. When they let the students decide where to spend the money, what they meant was that they would decide on it. Story 13. Laminated ID cards that everyone had to wear around their necks on some dorky lanyard. No one freaking did it, so they made it punishable by detention. After that, half the students still didn't do it, and the detention hall became so overwhelmed that they begun to have backlogs. After a few weeks, not wearing a lanyard gave you detention 2 months away. Eventually, detention became so backlogged that students started committing more severe transgressions because they would have graduated before they could actually be forced to go to detention. After about a month, no one had to wear their ID cards at all anymore. They said it was for security purposes so no one would sneak into our school. The thing is, you could put literally anything in the lanyard, so no one would check if it was your actual student ID card. I had a blank index card in mine, and no one ever said anything to me. If someone actually wanted to sneak into our school, all they would need is a lanyard, and no one would ever check if it was authentic or not. Story 14. When I was in elementary school, my school mandated silent lunches, and it was the absolute worst. Not quiet talking, not polite conversation. No, I'll trade you my Oreos for your Twix. Absolute silence. They apparently did it because kids were talking more than eating. It was miserable for me because I wanted to make friends, but I hardly had time to talk to other kids. Teachers always raised concerns over me being quiet and not talking to other kids. Yet I didn't actually have the time to make friends because it seemed like every time I was in an environment where I should be allowed to socialize, they mandated a silent lunch and later assigned seating. Not to mention recess was only 15 minutes. Wow, I don't know why I'm so angry about something that happened in elementary school. Story 15. My little sister was telling me about some of the things they've tried at my old school recently. One of the things they did was kind of like a poor man's RFID reader, but just on the main doors. The idea was to make sure that non-students couldn't get in, so they set up cameras on all the doors at all the entrances. You'd hit the buzzer, and then the receptionist would check the camera to see if you had an ID card and let you in, locking the door behind you. The trouble was, when all the buses got there, the receptionist couldn't keep up with the students trying to get into the building. The ones in the know just went through the band room, defeating the entire purpose, but for the rest of the students, they could have been as much as a half hour late for class just standing out in the rain waiting to get into the building. They gave up on it pretty quickly. They tried to make the school entrance high-tech, but it turned into a slow-tech nightmare. The overwhelmed receptionist found herself no match for the incoming busloads of students. Story 16. My country is still a developing country, so many new technologies are not implemented and properly operated. 2 years ago, my high school installed an ID and a fingerprint scanner at the school's main entrance gate, so they could track whether the student came to school or not. Every student had to pay like $5 to $10 to get a personal ID card and get their fingerprints in the system. The principal was very serious about this the first week, and then a couple of weeks later, students started forgetting their ID cards, some of them purposely annoying the teachers as if they didn't know how to use the machine or even put their fingers in the scanner. Then the machine started malfunctioning and eventually just stopped working one day and just stood at the entrance gate all dusty. A year later, they did this again and stopped after a month. I don't know what's happening now. Story 17. Yonder Pouches. You put your phone in them so you wouldn't get on it during school. The bad thing, they are magnetically locked. You know when you buy something from a clothing store and they have to take that device off the clothing with a super strong magnet? Yeah, that's how you open these to get your phone and take it out. A couple of people had their phone speakers destroyed because of these. The worst part is the punishment if you are found with your phone not in a Yonder Pouch. If they hear your phone go off in the pouch, if they see you have your phone out in class, or anything of the sort, they take your phone away for 2 days. 2 whole days. You won't have your phone that night or the next night. If you lose it on a Friday, you will not get it back until Tuesday. We don't do school on Mondays unless it is a snow makeup day. Nobody uses them. We all either leave our phones in our cars or shut them down and put them in our backpacks. Of course, the teachers like to try and search inside the backpacks, which aren't even allowed in the classrooms anymore. We also don't have lockers anymore. They tore all of them out and replaced them with shelves and cubbies to set the backpacks on. It is safe to say that quite a few things have been stolen. My school kind of stinks. Story 18. I went to a school where the fundraiser we held received anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000. The textbooks we were using in some of our classes were really out of date and low quality. And there were just too many things they could have upgraded. So I was expecting them to spend the money on something like that. But you know what they spent the money on? Benches. These benches, mind you, were benches that no one ever sat on. Like they were all the way in the corner of the recess field. And most of the time, teachers wouldn't even let us sit there. I'm so happy I left that school. I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you made it this far, I'm sure you'll also enjoy Teachers, what is the most disturbing thing your student has ever done? Story 5 is unbelievable. See you on that video.